All right, you might be curious about what it's like to live in Canada, but also what is it like to live inside a Canadian house? In this video, I'm gonna go through all of the details of what a Canadian neighborhood looks like, what a Canadian house is constructed with, what do Canadian backyards look like, and what are the unique features you're gonna find inside a Canadian house versus a South African one. Come with me and I will show you all the details. My eerste koffie. Dankie. Okay, let's start off with neighborhood structure. You're gonna find that in Canadian cities and Calgary, walkability is a huge factor, especially in inner cities neighborhoods. Walking, biking, scootering is all part of the norm. And even if you're not part of an inner city neighborhood, I would say that even the suburban neighborhoods are built with certain amenities in mind that makes it easy for you to walk to or an easy driving distance. Let's go through the list. Okay, to start with, we're gonna go with the library system. Oh, I have a hat. I wasn't kidding. I actually have a hat, which I got to support the library. Well, the reason they're fantastic, the Calgary Public Library system here, and I'm gonna do a separate video on other Canadian public services, but the library is fantastic because you'll find an outlet in pretty much every neighborhood, which is connected to the entire city system. So in Calgary alone, there are 21 outlets, which are into the different neighborhoods. They're all relatively walkable and they have different services available, internet, printing, it's just brilliant. I'll go more in depth with it, but you will find within a neighborhood structure, there is generally one library outlet, which is pretty close by your house. Just like there is a library in each neighborhood, you're going to find that there's also a recreation center. And they vary in sizes. Some of them have rinks, some of them have community halls, some of them have pools. So they can be humongous for a larger community, or for a smaller area that they're servicing, they can be smaller as well. But you will find that generally there is one in each neighborhood. And just like there is a rec center in each neighborhood, you are going to find a ton of public parks available for people to use. Those will be playgrounds, those will be open common areas. We live inner city and it is just crazy how many spots there are available for people to make use of. It is one of my favorite things. Something else that you are going to see in your neighborhood, and in most neighborhoods, is at least one public transit stop. It could be either a train station or it could be a bus stop. But even if you are in the suburbs and it may be a ton of connections to get wherever you need to go, you're going to see at least one bus stop available in each community that is generally walkable. And the closer you get into the inner city, you're going to see more lines and trains converge and bus stops because a lot of people are just using those to get downtown. So een van my gunsteling ontwerpe hierso in Calgary is the sidewalk, this little dip that you see. And this dip means that people who need wheelchairs or scooters or moms with strollers are actually able to have a great deal more accessibility and are able to get around the neighborhood a lot more easily. So you end up seeing a lot more people walking around because it's easy to cross the street. It's something so simple, but it's something that I didn't see as often in South Africa, is greater accessibility on the roads. Okay, now we're gonna delve a little bit into what it looks like outside of a house. Warning alert, Canadian houses are generally built a lot closer. This is gonna be something, older designs, you can see more space, but with newer designs, as more density and densification happens within, especially the inner city, you're gonna see that houses are built a lot closer together. And then you're also gonna see that some of the houses are actually built with a shared wall between them. It's called a duplex. Those are more common, especially in the inner city, where they take one lot and then they divide it into two residential lots in the same space, and they build the houses a lot tighter together. Sometimes they still split it and then they're not connected, but it's quite a common feature to actually see shared walls amongst houses. And they're not cheap houses, but people really desire living in the inner city, and this is one of the ways that they're able to do it. Something else that you're going to note when you're roaming the outside of a Canadian house, the backyard is much smaller. It is just the way it is, there's a few factors, I think. It's because land is expensive, because there is a lot of public common ground to use with playgrounds for kids so children can run around. I think also having an extensive yard that you have to look after and a crazy garden just isn't going to happen because you don't have a lot of gardeners out here working on the garden. It's you in your garden. You're also going to see in a Canadian backyard commonly a movable barbecue for a braai. It's not usually a fire, it's just a gas one. Sorry to break that news to you. And a deck. A deck is amper soos 'n laafbaan, maar sonder 'n dak. It's just a wooden area and structure where people usually hang out. Sometimes it does have shade, and it's kind of like separated from the grass. It's where you would sit and eat when you have summertime. You're also going to see that a lot of the gates, like there might be a enclosed area, but there's no gate that's going to be locked. You can very easily, honestly, roam into someone's backyard if you wanted to. A little weird if you were, but there may be a gate. It might have a simple lock, but you can usually open it by just sticking your hand around the other side. You're also going to see hot tubs. Hot tubs instead of swimming pools. Swembare is nie regtig 'n ding hierso in Canada nie. But you will see a lot of hot tubs, especially I think like in the 2000s. They became quite popular in the suburbs because a lot of my friends, they just have hot tubs, that vintage of house. It's just a thing. One thing I almost forgot to mention. Okay, this is a very interesting thing, and you'll see it within Neighbourhood, like that's a theme. Sometimes they have detached garages and alleyways behind them, and that's usually where the garbage gets picked up. Why this is, I'm not 100% sure. Like, I don't know why this particular design became prevalent to have a back alley, but our neighborhood has it. A lot of it. It's probably made just a bit of space between you and the neighbor. I don't know. And then there's the detached garage, which usually faces into the alleyway. Not all the time. You'll see a lot more modern houses have the garage in the front attached to the house that you can drive into. That's more the norm in newer houses. I totally forgot to put this in my notes, but as I was talking to you, I remembered, something else that you're going to see in Canadian neighborhoods are community mailboxes. So what generally happens in new neighborhoods is these little community boxes get propped up on different blocks, and then you go and you fetch your mail with a key and you lock it up again and you go home. You will see some neighborhoods, for some reason ours, we still receive mail to our house, but in newer developments the norm is a community mailbox system. Okay, what you're going to see when you compare South African houses to Canadian houses and the materials used to build them. In South Africa, you're going to see cement and brick, and in Canada, you're going to see a lot of wood. And there's a really good reason for that. Number one, wood is quick to build with, and labor is expensive here, so you want to get her up and get her sold. And then number two is that wood is an insulator, and because you're in a cold climate, you want to be as warm as possible. And you're going to see that theme continue in other components of the house in Canada. For instance, a lot more carpet, because it is an insulator as well as wood compared to tile. Man, I remember those mornings in South Africa in the winter when you walk barefoot on a cold tile and it was just freezing. Yeah, that's a big difference. Another thing that you're going to see is on the roofs here. You are not going to find a thatched roof out this way. Maybe a historic building, but thatched roofs are not a thing. Asphalt shingles are the way generally that houses are constructed. Their roofs are created out of. Sometimes regular tile as well, but more fancy. But you're not going to see a thatched roof out this way. I can just only imagine it with the snow. It'd be leaking all the time. Yeah, so those are the major differences on the materials used to construct houses here in Canada. Okay, let's talk heating. In Canada, all houses have central heating or some variation of that. And what that looks like is when the temperature drops to a certain level in the house, a furnace, which is usually located on the main floor or in the basement, will go on and it will raise the temperature in the house through the furnace and vents, which you will see in the ground of the house. Something else that you're going to see inside a house as well is generally a gas fireplace. This is separate from the furnace, so in case there were to have a power outage, you would have an alternate source of heat within the house, which is pretty smart to do considering that winters can get chilly and power outages do happen. Power outages do happen, but there is no load sharing in Canada, which for my Canadian friends who are watching, it's like, what is load sharing? Well, load sharing are these rolling brownouts or blackouts that happen in South Africa because the South African government didn't plan ahead to create energy resources and electrical stations. So what they did was, it was a great growth in population. What their solution to this particular problem is to have rolling brownouts where you just are without power for certain points in the day on a schedule. That is not a thing in Canada. When there's an outage of an hour or two, people are on their cell phones being like, what is happening? So load sharing is not a thing. Maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe it's ended in South Africa. Can you tell me in the comment section below, are rolling brownouts or load sharing still a South African thing? I haven't checked the news on that particular front in a while. Controversial opinion? Ek dink dat Suid-Afrikaanse huise in die winter is kouer as Canadese huise in die winter. Ek het gesê. One other thing that you're going to see that's different between Canadians and South African houses is electricity. In South Africa, most houses, I believe, you actually have to put in, no. In South Africa, all houses, you have to prepay your electricity. In Canada, you do not prepay your electricity. You just don't do the prepaid system. And I remember my husband's look of surprise when he visited South Africa and he was like, what? You prepay? What is the setup and design of Canadian houses? Most Canadian houses have the bedrooms upstairs. There's usually a bathroom for the kids or an ensuite for the parents, or maybe just a shared bathroom for everyone. Your kitchen is the main hub of the house. Generally in more modern open concept houses, that's connected to the TV, living room, dining area. And then you're going to see basements in Canada. There's a few different options. There are completed basements, which is just like an entire different floor. You really can't tell the difference. Maybe there's a little less light downstairs. Then there is also unfinished basements, which is ours. And that space is still quite usable, generally for storage or for a little gym area. It's a little bit cooler though, because it is in a lower level of the house, but there's usually windows. It's not like it's a cellar. And then the third option in one of the houses we lived in was a crawl space. Nobody is living in there except in a horror movie inside my mind. That space is not used. Maybe people use a little bit of storage, but it is a crawl space for a reason. Something that you will notice about Canadian houses are the windows. They are double pane usually. That means you have 2 panes of glass. It actually keeps the heat in and insulates the house better. And you'll also notice that the areas for which to close a window is very tightly sealed so that the heat doesn't go outside of the house, which is quite different from, I think, South African houses, which have a little bit more wiggle room. Here are the closing thoughts on Canadian houses. Canadians do spend a lot of time inside their house in the winter, and they want to make it as comfortable as possible during that time. But you'll see on the other seasons, especially summer, they want to get out there and be in the neighborhood, and they make use of public spaces like crazy and festivals. It's a really good time. I'm going to do a separate video on the housing market here in Canada. So if that's what you're looking for, I'll link that. But hopefully this helped answer a few of the questions, or maybe some of the thoughts that you hadn't considered about Canadian houses. If you do decide to immigrate and you are not sure about houses or neighborhoods, one of the pro tips I'm gonna recommend is to not buy right away. I think it's really important to know your neighborhood. They're very different inner city from suburban areas to anywhere in between. So before you make the biggest sale purchase of your life after not really knowing your neighborhood very well, I would say just live a little while and see what you like. It's no big rush when you come out this way. Hopefully I will see you soon. Subscribe below for more videos like this. Comment on any questions or videos that you're curious about, and I can make those as well. And follow me on Christy in Calgary on Instagram, where you'll get to see more of my day-to-day life. See you soon.